Hello and welcome back. A very simple, loose watercolour landscape for you today. Nice and quick and easy, something you can fit in whilst going out and about in this beautiful summer weather that we're enjoying at the moment. But first, a quick plug for my book, Landscapes in Watercolour, Techniques and Tutorials for the Complete Beginner. There's an introduction to watercolour painting in general and landscapes, and 10 projects, 5 line and wash projects and 5 pure watercolour. So if you're interested in that, then check out the links below. Today I'm going to be painting this quick study in the wet in wet method. So you can see that I got my paper stuck to my board with ordinary decorator's masking tape. My paper is Milford cold press watercolour paper and my board's at an angle of about 20 degrees. I'm using a large wash brush. Mine is a 1.5 inch Princeton Aqua Elite modeler brush. And to paint the sky, I've wet the sky with clean water, painting around the clouds and leaving the white of the paper to do the bulk of the work for the clouds. I've used cobalt blue, and you can see where I've worked around the clouds. And while everything's still wet, I've dipped into sap green and a little bit of perylene green to darken it up in places, and a little bit of permanent yellow to lighten it in places. And using the same modeler brush, I'm painting my trees onto the wet background with quite rich paint so that the paint won't run and diffuse too much, but the edges will soften really nicely. And I can brush in a very, very simple foreground, just following my pencil sketch. This is much darker perylene green, rich and creamy, and it won't run or diffuse too much again, and it'll just give me these really deep summer shadows that these thick summer canopies always have for these summer landscapes. Using my size 5 palette knife, just starting off the trees, drawing through the damp paint with my palette knife to start off some tree trunks and branches here and there across my tree line. I'm trying to keep things nice and loose. When you practice scenes like this, try not to get bogged down with too much detail. It doesn't matter if the painting isn't perfect. It's more important to build confidence in your brushwork and to learn how to use all different parts of the brush to create these different marks. You can see how I've put in some richer paint in the foreground to suggest just a tangle of like undergrowth and brambles, something like that, growing up across the field in the foreground. It helps to sort of balance the composition, and it's really good practice. I can start getting in a few tree trunks, even though the paper's still damp. Those tree trunks will just soften and diffuse slightly, and I can sort of define those a little bit more in the second part of the painting when I use the wet on dry method. This is a great way for beginners to build confidence in brushwork and handling different hues of green, and also, of course, building up tonal value so that you get sort of shape and form in your painting. I'm going to add a little bit of ordinary fine ground table salt into the foreground, and each little salt grain will push away the paint and give me some sort of pretty marks that suggest flowers and seed heads, that sort of thing, in the foreground. Running through with a palette knife, scraping out some sort of grasses and stems will add to that effect as the salt works its magic. Painting's dry now, so I'm going back in with my rigger and painting in those sort of firmer, more defined tree trunks and branches. Just a few here and there, just to bring these brush marks together, so that these loose brush marks start to suggest this tree line. It really does help to use a fairly big brush for most of a painting like this. The bigger brush that you can use, the looser your painting will end up, especially if you trust to the process and practice enough so that you understand the kind of marks that are made with your brush and the kind of marks that suggest the scenes and the elements in the composition that you want them to. A few little marks with the rigger brush creates a fence running below the tree line, and that just brings the scene together even more. And that's pretty much it for this loose painting practice. I'm going to remove the tape and just take a look at it, see how it looks with its clean white border. I've got a feeling I want to break up the edge of the canopies where they fall across the white cloud, just to add a little bit more detail, a tiny amount of focus there, just to draw the eye. So using a variety of greens, I'm just going to use the rigger brush and just kind of sort of dab in a few smaller brush marks around those larger ones, and this will just give the impression of some of those smaller leaves and break up the edges of those canopy shapes a little bit more. I think the trick with loose watercolour painting is to keep it really, really loose for the most part, and then just bring together a small amount of detail at the end of the painting. So here the detail is pretty much limited to those small leaves breaking up the edge of the canopy, the fence and some of the tree trunks. The rest is just brush marks suggesting the scene, and of course using really good deep tonal values to create your shadows is what gives the painting shape and form. And take your time when you're adding these details, step back from the painting and every now and again and see how it's looking, and then add a few more of those marks if it needs it. Maybe dip into some slightly darker paint here and there just to add a few more shadows and to break up those edges a little more. But do beware of getting a bit carried away and adding a bit too much detail at this stage, because it's quite easy to do, and then you can run the risk of losing the freshness of the scene. And here's the finished painting. And try not to worry about whether or not your painting looks perfect when you're practicing like this. The idea of practice is to build your brushwork skills, to really learn about controlling the water in your brushes, on your paper and in your paint mixtures, building up the tonal values that you need in order to give the painting shape and form. And that's what this practice is all about. I think too many beginners especially try to aim for finished paintings all the time, and without sort of firm foundation of these sorts of skills, it can be quite frustrating because the painting won't turn out as you want it to. So put the practice in and you will really see some wonderful results. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that was helpful. If you enjoyed that, then why not take a look at my Etsy shop? I've relaunched it recently, and I'll try to remember to put the link in the description below, along with links to check out the book. Many thanks for watching, and thank you so much to everybody that supports us on Patreon. We really do appreciate you. I'll see you again soon. Take care and happy painting. Bye.